Welcome back to the Unraveled podcast. My name is Nina.
And my name's Alina. So today I wanted to discuss like the psychology of success, basically, the mindset, kind of what that entails. I've always truly believed that anyone can really do anything that they want to do if they put the work in and if they have the right mindset to do it. I think I think it's only 1% of the population is like millionaires or billionaires or something like that.
It's a low percentage, yeah.
A very low percentage to say the least. And I think that majority of that success outside of inheritance usually comes from the person's mindset and drive and desire to be successful and do or be whatever they want to be. And I think the first thing that comes with that is the mindset. Are you going to have a growing mindset or are you going to have a fixed mindset? And I think the growing mindset, you have to be resilient for change. You have to be mindful and have the desire to be open to change and learning. And then the fixed mindset, you're basically just kind of comfortable with where you're at and don't have any desire for change.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's just a lot of this stuff you're not naturally born with. I think you learn it over time. But I mean, that fixed mindset versus growth, I've seen it both in my own life, but then also when I'm hiring people, it's very clear, the people that are going to be a good fit have to have that growth mindset.
Correct.
And, some people that I've worked with before, they would say, oh, I'm not coachable, I'm guidable, I don't need
not
coaching.
The way to go into anything.
And, to each their own. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But when I'm looking at people that have been successful throughout the years and that are continuing to be successful, they're always in a state of learning, So learning, growing, and that growth mindset, I think is hugely important. Because, I mean, if you stop learning, how do you expect to improve? Because there's always something new, whether it's your industry or information. There's constantly things you could learn and improve in.
I agree. And I think that comes from the desire as well. Like, are you comfortable with where you're at? Do you want to make any changes? And I think that fixed mindset of being comfortable, which again, there's no issues with that if that's what you want to be, but don't be upset that you're not seeing the growth or the success that you want out of yourself if you're not willing to change your mindset to be able to want to be more successful and put in the work for that. Because the problem with that fixed mindset is you're limiting your potential.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life, but I just personally, I have found that if you are open to learning from people, not only will you improve your own skills, but you build better connections with people.
Totally agree.
You can learn from each other. I mean, I've learned so much from you during the time that
and vice versa
worked together and been friends and things like that. But imagine if it's just like, oh no, I know everything I need to know.
Right.
It's almost more about ego,
right?
I think, than anything else.
And in real estate alone for me, like since the day that I got into the industry, like I was always like yearning to grow and wanting to understand more about the industry. Rather, I was like learning that from other people or reading a book or searching on the internet. Like that was always my mindset because I wanted to grow in this industry. And it's continued to be my mindset, even though I've been in the industry for over 8 years now, because I understand there should always be a space for growth. No matter how successful you are, no matter what you want to accomplish, like you have to have the mindset of there's a space for growth. Because if you don't, the minute you stop learning, the minute you stop growing, you become stagnant in whatever it is that you're trying to succeed in. And I feel like in real estate is one of those industries where it's just constantly changing. And this year, honestly, we've had even more changes than we've experienced in prior years because of the whole NAR settlement, that we have no other choice but to grow and understand what the changes are and how we're going to better service our clients. And I think that, again, in order to truly be successful, you're going to have to you're going to have to shift your mindset when it comes to growth and whatnot.
I mean, and the thing is, all of this I think is secondary, but to get there, I mean, having the habit of always being ready to learn and grow. I mean, that's something that you have to, I had to teach that to myself. And if we think about like habits overall, that's another huge factor, I think, when it comes to success. I know for you, obviously, what do you think through the years in this industry as a business owner, managing and hiring all these people, and having your own businesses, what does habit mean to you, and how has that benefited or not benefited your business?
So I don't necessarily say it's the habit itself that has benefited me so much as it has been the benefit of doing the habit, which creates a routine, if that makes sense. So like for me, there's been we all have different phases of our life where we're changing certain things. And currently in this phase of my life, I have been really focused on my health, my mental health, my general health. And because in turn, that will help me be better in my business and be better in my routines. So I've really focused on going to the gym every single day and eating properly and watching what I'm eating, being more mindful of that. And that's been part of the habits that I have changed. And simple things like fixing my bed every morning and making sure I take out my contact lenses. All of those things seem so insignificant, but the reality is they're building up to a bigger picture. They're building me to be better with my consistency in my life, rather that's for those small things, or just being more consistent through other things in my life. And it's also training me to have certain things put in place, like habits. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, and that's like, I know we talked about this before, starting out with something small, because, thinking about all the things that you need to change, and it's a lot. But think something small, like, hey, every day I'm going to get up and make my bed, or every day I'm going to get up and drink a glass of water, or, I'm going to start getting up at 5 a.m. like I used to.
Right.
Little things like that, just one tweak. And then
it's a game changer.
It's a game changer for multiple reasons. Obviously, you're going to have better health, or you're going to have more time. Then not only that, and I was reading this book, it talks about how when you keep a promise to yourself, that endorphins that your body gets from that, it's like you're having a sense of accomplishment every single day. You don't need to achieve this huge milestone in order to have that chemical response in your body.
Right.
Just doing something you say you're going to do, and then it just builds that layer of confidence over and over again.
And we talk about confidence and habits, and that pairs very well with self-belief, which I think is a huge personal trait that is necessary for success. And I think when you start building habits for yourself and you start building that consistency and confidence through those habits, you build a sense of self-belief. And I'm reading the book Atomic Habits. I've been doing it on audiobook as I'm driving, because this summer has been my season of building habits and building consistency in my life. And so that's been my go-to book this summer, which I have not finished yet. I still have like an hour and a half left of it. But in the book, he talks about how if you're wanting to go, if you want to go to the gym, but you haven't been going for a long time, in order to build a habit, just show up, just drive there and then drive and go home. Do that for X amount of time period. And then eventually you'll gradually take steps into getting into the door. But the thing is, it's not about what your goal is. It's not about getting into the gym. It's about building the habit so you can eventually get there.
Correct.
And it doesn't matter. Again, it goes back to the fact it doesn't matter about what little steps you take to get there. It's that you're taking the step. And eventually you'll build that confidence. Eventually you'll build that self-belief in yourself that it's possible. So, and again, the self-belief goes back to the mindset as well. We talked about the growth and the fixed mindset, but you also have to have the mindset of believing in yourself that you're able to accomplish these things. And yes, a lot of it comes from confidence and building that. But one of the best ways I truly believe that you can build confidence into getting to self-belief is by doing habits. Absolutely. Because then you're believing in yourself that you're capable of doing, if you're capable of doing it. And like I said, the small thing like the gym, like if you never went to the gym before, but you're trying to go, start showing up for yourself differently. It's like start driving to the gym, getting there. And again, eventually that will form the self-belief that you need and the confidence.
Yeah. And if we're really truthful, I think a lot of us, either we didn't have parents, or our parents maybe instilling a sense of confidence maybe wasn't their strong suit. Let's put it that way, right?
True.
And so you grow up from a child to a teenager to an adult, and even people that are successful, they're deeply insecure still. And so how do you get from the point of you're not relying on your parents or other people or colleagues to bring your self-worth or your confidence or your reassurance? You can do that on your own. But again, it's through keeping promises to yourself, building those habits, showing up for yourself, because then you know that you can count on yourself. That if push comes to shove and everything else and everyone else fails, you will be there for yourself. You'll step up. But it happens over time.
It's not overnight, and you have to give yourself grace. And I remember when I was maybe 19, 20, I went to my sister and I was talking about how I was having a hard time building my confidence and myself. And she, you know, had to tell me, like, at the end of the day, people's opinion of you are always going to change. One minute they may like you, one minute they may not like you for something else. You cannot rely on someone's opinion of you and what they think of you to build your confidence at the end of the day, because that will change. And if that changes, so will you. And you don't want to utilize that to determine your value or your worth.
Yeah. Your self-worth and confidence has to be rock solid, regardless of what anyone says.
Agreed.
Because we can't control other people. It could be a family member. It could be someone that we love. It could be a good friend that for whatever reason decides to say something hurtful or do something hurtful. And then your whole world will be shattered.
Correct.
But if that core is solid, it might still hurt, but you're not going to be shaken.
Correct.
That's the biggest thing. How do you build your life and build the habits to where you as an individual cannot be shaken by exterior circumstances? And that's a hard thing.
Yeah, it is. But I strongly believe like that, you know, taking those small little habits, no matter what it is, literally helps you build that
self-confidence.
For sure.
We have a little visitor today. She's like, I want to talk about self-confidence.
I know. And then one other thing I think is important when it comes to, like, you know, building success is overcoming failure. One of the hardest things I had for myself personally was overcoming failure. I know in one episode we talked about how everyone's not for us. Everyone doesn't, you know, we're not made to work with everybody. We're just not. Yeah. And in some settings, you're going to see that as failure when things don't work out the way it is, but also that's a learning. You have to change your mindset and how you see failure. I've always seen failure, yes, it's initially hurtful, that stinks, but also I have to change my perspective and be like, okay, I'm going to learn from this experience. I'm going to grow from this, because failure exists so that we can learn from those experiences and that we can grow from them. But if you just sit around and mope about the failure that you had, and you're not going to, and you don't take that into consideration, then you'll continue to be stagnant, or you'll continue to make the same failures over and over again.
Yeah. And sometimes, honestly, something that we might perceive in that moment as a failure is actually just the next step. You know, it's a door that closed. It's something that was not meant to be, or maybe it was meant to be for a time, but it's not a failure. It's an opportunity for growth if you look at it that way. But then if you just view it as a failure and then everything's doom and gloom, you're going to hold yourself back from maybe the opportunity.
And be depressed, and your mindset will change and be more negative than it could be positive by changing your mindset about it. I'll never forget when I first opened up my property management company, and this was more of like a real business for me. I guess it's kind of still inside of real estate, but outside of real estate. So a little complex there. But in the beginning, I was like, we had one client. And I liked it because it allowed for a lot of trial and error, and and bless those clients' heart, because they worked with us through everything. And then the second year I was like, okay, we should be growing. Things aren't going the way I thought it would be. And at that point I was like, I think I just want to close the business down. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm not happy with where it's at. And I didn't realize at the time either that most businesses usually fail within the first few years, but also most businesses, they fail within the first few years because people get discouraged.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that most businesses take time to grow. And I didn't realize that. Unconsciously, I just didn't think about that to realize that. And I was ready to quit before I saw it through. And I'm very happy I saw it through, or else that business wouldn't be where it is today. Yeah. But again, during that time period, I went through a lot of trial and error. I went through a lot of failure, but I had to change my mindset to figure out, how can I use this failure to grow my company and change and make my clients a little more happier, or just change how I was doing things before to turn that failure into success.
Yeah. And I think it's easy for people to look at a company or an individual that's successful or has had any success and think, oh, they got lucky, it's easy. But what they don't see is the hours of paperwork, the hours of personal development, all the money that has to be spent, the, blood, sweat, and tears. The years. Yeah. All of that is usually behind the scenes.
And one thing that I've given up so much is my time. And I don't say give up like, I'm not grateful for it, or it's not something I wanted to do. Like, there'd be sometimes I'd be at the office until 12 or 1 a.m. putting systems in place for my businesses to prevent some failures. Yeah. Like that first, I think it was last year actually, like that entire fall from like September to January, I was literally at the office from like sometimes 6 a.m. to midnight, because I was literally building systems and putting systems in place, because we had went through a time period where there was a lot of error and failure. So I was like, I need to do an SOP. I need to have systems in place for my workers so that they know how to handle every single situation. And that took me months to build, months. Yeah. But now I'm very blessed that I took that time to do that, because now we're in a season where I don't have to be taking so many calls or answering so many questions on how you do this. How do you want me to do this? Look at the SOP. I spent months building it. Look at the SOP. And SOP, for reference, is standard operating procedures, which most companies have. Most companies have in order to kind of prevent a lot, just to make things a little more smoother.
But also, if you bring on a new hire, once you have them in place, you know, it's way less time consuming.
Correct. And that's what I was trying to build, because eventually, as a company grows, you need standard operating procedures in place to kind of make things run a little smoother, make your onboarding a little smoother.
Yeah.
And I was taking my time to build that, and it took a lot of time.
And then, you know, if they ever have a question or they mess up, we can just refer back to
the SOP. And then I know how to handle consequences as well. If you didn't refer back to the SOP and you didn't follow the protocol, then hey, what's the consequences for this now?
Yeah.
So
it's just there's so many niche, detailed things that I think make up the mindset that you need to be successful, and then the practical application of what it means to consistency over time, showing up when you don't feel like it, showing up when other people don't want to, working when people are taking time off, long nights, long days, and then the result is, oh wow, where did they come from? They're so successful. Surely they got a handout. You know? No. What probably happened is they just worked and worked quietly, and then there they are.
That's true. One other thing I want, before we kind of wrap up this episode, one other thing I want to, point on is goal setting.
Yeah.
Is at the end of the day, like we all, see successful people. We know successful people, and we see where they're at, like you just mentioned, but how are they getting there? And like what kind of goals are they setting? And I don't think it always has to be a business-oriented goal so much as it has to be a goal for yourself in education, development, and change to be able to get to that success.
Yeah. And actually, for a long time, I would just do business goals. And then my coach was getting after me like, excuse me, what about you? So for this year, so I always do goal setting, but at the end of the year before the fall, so for this year, it's going to be in December. I always will set goals. So last year in December, the goals I set for this year, part of them were business, but a lot of them were personal. Health, and mindset, education, and then business. Because if that's all hand in hand,
the rest will come.
Correct.
And I normally, like you, would set my goals in December, so then that way I'm ready for the new year. Hey, this is what I want to do. And I still do that, but I also change those goals and I add more goals to them throughout the year. And when I say goal, I don't mean like, I don't mean like I had this huge goal, which slightly do. But also, like, I have these all miniature other things, like, hey, I want to read one book a month. I want to make sure that I'm only eating sweets on the weekends. Like, I'm setting all these different other small things that I want to achieve throughout the year, monthly, weekly, all of that.
Yeah.
And that all helps me get to the bigger goal. Because I think it's different when you're like, let me just use health for an example. I want to lose 100 pounds this year, but how am I going to get to that goal? Like what you've got to break that down and see what it looks like for you monthly, weekly, daily. Exactly. Or else that goal is going to seem so unrealistic because you don't have a plan to get there.
I think for this next year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the goals for the year, but then I'm also going to do a quarterly check-in.
I haven't done quarterly before. I like that.
So, because you're right. Without an actual plan, people can say anything. And it doesn't actually mean it's going to happen. If you don't have actual systems, models, plans in place, forget about it. And then you're going to end up getting discouraged by the end of the year because you didn't reach your goals. And then you're going to feel bad about yourself. So why not avoid all of that mess?
And set yourself up correctly, right? And have a better plan to reach that goal.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening and for watching. We post a brand new episode every Wednesday. You can follow us on social media or listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts.